The 13 Tom and Jerry shorts made by Czechoslovakian director Jean Delitzsch are famous for their poor quality and rather disturbing nature, featuring badly done sound effects and the animation having more realistic feel to the violence. Some have speculated that Delitzsch didn't like the concept behind Tom and Jerry and was pursued into making them, and wanted to make people think who watched this to make it feel really bad for liking the concept. That we may don't know who Delitzsch originally was signed to make more than 13 episodes to the public has access to. Despite to get this out of his contract, Delitzsch made one more Tom and Jerry short that was a few have ever seen. The short was called Tom's Basement. It opened up with the Tom in a typical Tom and Jerry house. His owner was the fat angry guy from Delitzsch shorts. Tom's owner seemed more angrier than his appearances. The first scene was him stomping on Tom's tail in a very realistic crying, painful looking kind of way as Tom was sleeping by the basement door. The owner yells at Tom to never go down there, as Tom was clearly terrified and runs away to another room. Our view stays in the room by the basement door, and we see Jerry come out of his mouse hole. He looks really truly grotesque, so far off model than the other Delitzsch shorts, so he gets an evil look on his face and throws Tom into the next room. The next few minutes were fairly dramatic. Jerry repeatedly manages to trick Tom into chasing him into the basement door a few times, but each time the owner catches Tom, he inflicts a painful-looking injury on him, which causes Tom to stay after the scene ends. After 3 beatings, Tom is bruised all over, bleeding in a few places, and limping on a broken leg. After this, Tom started literally begging Jerry to not bother him anymore. He's not really talking, but he is crying and mumbling, and you could tell what he's doing by his body language. Jerry just bursts out and laughing at him and pushes him back into the basement door. The owner catches Tom once again and goes ballistic. The camera zooms in on his face. It changes colors and distorts where he yells at Tom in such a much louder voice than any other sound cartoon. I can't post what most of it's said on here, but it's definitely vicious and furious. It seems like Tom and Jerry has finally decided to take a pity on Tom, although Jerry picks up a knife that was lying around and stabs the owner of the leg quite graphically. As Tom opens the basement door and they carry the owner's body down the stairs, there are dozens of other bodies down there. Even showing their violent deaths and signs. Tom and Jerry shake their hands as it seems they have triumphed over the serial killer. But Jerry gets an evil look on his face, and Tom says that ghostly deep voice, "Don't you believe it?" Of course, Jerry stabs Tom and kills him, and then throws the body down the basement. The last short shot is Jerry putting up a for sale sign of the house of the yard, clearly planning to do it all again. And that, my little pretties, was Tom's Basement, a Tom and Jerry Lost episode creepypasta written by Kai Simpson. My final thoughts on the story. This story, I have to say, was good, but at the same time, I wasn't really, a fan of this Lost episode. Now, I'm not trying to sit there and, be harsh on the author in any way, shape, or form, so there's definitely that disclaimer. I'm not trying to, sound harsh to the author in any way, shape, or form. This is just me giving out my opinions. This is a classic creepypasta. I am not gonna lie. This is actually a classic creepypasta that's been online for a while. Now, I have seen, a couple of narrations of the story, and I'm going to be completely honest. I wasn't a fan of this story. Like, it's not terrible or anything, but for me, for some reason, I find this one to be, I don't know. There's something about it. I'm just not really a fan of it. I can't really point down on what it is, but I definitely have to say it was definitely something. Like, this story was a little bit dark, which I understand, this story was a dark one. I think I kind of remember narrating this back in 2019. I can't remember. I can't remember how long ago was that, so I definitely have to say that this story was not a bad story, I'm not gonna lie, but there are a couple flaws. One of them being that I guess you could kind of say the fact that, Tom and Jerry, kill certain owners and then they put them in the basement. That's kind of freaky. I know it's a little bit cliched or something, but for some reason, this was honestly something when it came to Tom and Jerry. Now, I haven't watched a cartoon in years. Like, it's been like, oh man, it's such a long time. I definitely have to say it was a pretty interesting story. Like, I'm not gonna lie. This story was an old one, so I'm not gonna lie that this one was an old story. So I could kind of somewhat see, as to why that's the case. But I definitely have to say that this story was dark. But there was also a few flaws with the story. So I guess maybe that was kind of why I was kind of a little bit hesitant to, wasn't sure if I really wanted to narrate this story or anything like that, but I understand this one was a pretty popular creepypasta, especially when it came back to, seeing how good this one is. And by the way, I'm gonna be completely honest, this story was not terrible. Like, it wasn't a terrible story, but it does have a few flaws. Like, I think one of them being, there's blood cliche, which I could definitely somewhat excuse it because, it's it's like an old pasta. But yeah, the thing I definitely have to say was that there was not really much as to why this episode was made or what became of this episode to get so gruesome or something. Like, there's like barely any explanation as to why that's the case. So I'm gonna say I like a lot of Kai Simpson stories. At least to me, I know a lot of people are not that crazy on them, so that's just definitely their opinion. So, but there's that. The grammar of this story is pretty good. I'm not gonna lie. The grammar is pretty good. The sentence structuring was pretty good too. And the storyline, it seemed pretty interesting, but at the same time, I kind of see why not a lot of people really cared for this story. Like, this story was good, but it had a couple flaws with the story as to why. Like, besides the cliche, it didn't really explain a whole lot as to what caused, the Tom and Jerry to be that. And it's not that too scary, too, so that was kind of why. Of course, it did not, scare this at all. Like, I guess the build up to the scariest just wasn't really, really showing for some reason. I think that might be it. Like, I'm not really, like, the story was alright. It's just I didn't really care for this story. So, I guess there's definitely that. Now, this story, it is an old story, so I'm definitely have to say it's an old story. It's not perfect, but anyway, it was actually something. Now, this story I found in the regular Creepypasta Wiki. I've been kind of wanting to redo this story for a while because I know it's been quite a while because I've been trying to see if I could find, more of these, and I found some more of these stories, somewhere. So, yeah, so there's definitely that, and I'm really glad I got to read this story because this story was honestly a pretty interesting one at that. So, I definitely have to say, this one was actually a pretty interesting pasta. Maybe not perfect per se or anything, but I definitely have to say this one was actually something. So, I definitely have to say it's not a terrible story, but there is a few things that does need, I guess maybe this just needs to be, kind of like more explanation to the story and maybe kind of more explanation. I think that way it'd be a lot more, I think it'd be a lot more explainable, to be honest. Like, I'm not trying to put hate on the offer or anything. I'm just, just kind of stating my opinion, which is pretty understandable. So, okay, there's definitely that. I think that's all I have to say. It's not a bad story, although there are flaws with it. So, there's definitely that. So, yeah, that story was definitely, it was definitely something. So, okay. I think with that being the case and with that being said, I'm going to sit there and just kind of wrap up the review. There's not really much to say. So, anyways, with that being the case, I am going to sit there and say this right now, that this is just simply my own personal opinion, and if you happen to disagree with me, that's fine too. We're all entitled to our own opinions in regards to these creepypastas, and this is simply my own personal thoughts. My final rating of this story would have to be, I'm going to give this one a 6 out of 10. It's not a bad story, I'm not going to lie, it wasn't bad, although there are flaws with the story, so yeah, I'm sure if most of you guys will know why there's a lot of flaws in this story. But I definitely have to say this story was actually pretty interesting, to be completely honest. So I definitely say that right now. So yeah, this is actually gonna be something. So yeah, let me just wrap this up because yeah. Anyways, what did you guys think about this curry pasta? Did you all enjoy it? Did you all not? Also, what we have done personally to help make this story a lot better? Feel free to leave me now what your thoughts are down in the comment section down below. I'm the Queen of Lions. Thank you so much for watching today's episode, and if you're brand new here on this channel, be sure to like, comment, and subscribe because I make brand new videos every single day. Don't forget to ring the notification bell to when I upload so that you guys will not miss an upload. And as always, please roll the outro because I'm out.